Fat cakes are the favorite food for many people in Bloemfontein in the Free State. The deep-fried bread bun are a hit because they can be eaten at any time of the day and during all seasons.
Most Bloemfontein foodies regard fat cakes as one of their preferred food, popularly known as magwenya in township slang. The deep-fried bread buns are called dibeko across Mangaung. While most prefer them as a snack, the delicious bites of the crispy, soft and tender fried dough are often paired with dried fish, also known as snoek, liver paste, or a spicy condiment known as acha.
I usually prefer fat cakes. I love Mama's fat cakes. They are not oily, they are nice and affordable.
At work, I usually eat fat cakes because they are very affordable for us here at Sepo, working around here. And they are not oily.
Okay, for now, since
I'm someone who is very cautious about my body and weight, I prefer these fat cakes because they contain less fat. I usually come from CUT every morning to come and buy these fat cakes. I prefer having them with snoek and acha.
Resembling the shape of a hamburger bun, fat cake lovers, me included, we can't seem to get enough of this traditional South African fried bread that is made with yeast and cake flour.
Since our fat cakes are in demand, we usually strive to ensure that we don't run out of them early. They usually buy them during summer, but mostly are bought in winter, where you would find at times one person spending a lot of money on them. My fat cakes are priced at 2 rands each because of their bigger size when compared to the usual 1 rand price.
Sugar, cake flour, yeast, and a bit of salt are some of the ingredients that create this delicious dough that can also be filled with mince or butter and jam. Refilo Mekwa, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
Well, there are a variety of sishebos that you can use with your magwenya. I'm sure some people would love one or two of them. When growing up, you must have heard adults say, "Don't chew with your mouth open." This is just one of many examples of a dinner table etiquette. Such principles may have played a role in molding you into the individual that you have now become, who displays what is often called good table manners around the dinner table. But the table manners and food etiquette in our households may not necessarily be the same as those practiced next door. So what are the do's and the don'ts? Also, what are some of the universally accepted or acceptable dining table and food-related etiquette? To discuss this, we are now joined by Riandi Conradie, who is the Managing Director at the South Africa African Etiquette. Good morning and thank you so much for making time for us. So where do we start with this? And also considering that we live in South Africa, I just saw a Telegraph survey that they've done, and they found that South Africa is one of the greatest countries. And the diversity of the country, of course, is what informs the greatness of our country. But with that diversity also comes what does food etiquette really mean, and table dinner standards that needs to be set, considering considering how diverse we are as a nation.
Absolutely. I think the very first thing to remember is that etiquette is a code of conduct on how to act in every situation. But etiquette is also determined by who you visit. And what I mean with that is South Africa's got such a beautiful diversity that we cannot ignore the fact that what happens in my home is maybe different to what happens in my neighbor's house in terms of dining etiquette. So if we look at that and we celebrate the amazing and the beautiful diversity, we have to acknowledge that when we are visiting someone, when they are the host and we are the guest, we will, in etiquette terms, we will submit and celebrate their cultural background, and we will celebrate their dining etiquette with them. And what I mean with that is, if I'm visiting my neighbor and they prefer to eat the food with their hands, in that instance, if I'm not known to that, I will then ask, and I will ask questions. I'll get to learn more about my neighbor. And I think the most important thing is to ask your neighbor, please also teach me how do you eat your special dish, because it will be different when I invite you to my home and I'm going to let you taste my special dish. But something that we need to remember in terms of dining etiquette, it is a code of conduct, an international code of conduct. And when we look at that, it shows us basic dining etiquette in terms of how to act in every situation.
Yeah, and what would your advice then be to people? Let's say I go and visit my neighbor, go and visit a friend, for instance. What are some of the things that I need to take into consideration? And also, should I be asking any questions before I get there?
Absolutely. I think one of the most important things is we're always going to respect our host. So when we visit someone's home, if you are uncertain as what is expected of you, if it's maybe perhaps your first time visiting your neighbor's home or your friend's home, the best etiquette is actually to ask beforehand and to say, I'm visiting your home for the first time. Is there anything that I need to take note of? Something that is universal and across cultures is always to accept an invitation when you're being invited. Also, to maybe take the host a small gift. It doesn't always have to be a gift in terms of a present, but it could also be a dish that you bring along for the other guests to share as well. So I think the most important thing is not to be intimidated when you're being invited to a different host's home, but rather to ask the questions beforehand and to say, listen, is there anything that I need to be aware of? Is there anything that I must bring along? Please share with me if there's anything important. I think living in South Africa, it's such a beautiful privilege to celebrate our diversity and to celebrate the fact that we do things differently, and that is what makes us so beautiful.
And then the other one, which sometimes can be very contentious, and that is around the taste of the meal. If your host asks you, did you enjoy the meal? How honest must you be in your response?
I think that is a very, very interesting question. The most important thing is if someone is giving you a meal that you're maybe allergic to. So let's use that example first. If you're offering me prawns and I'm allergic to prawns, I may say, no, thank you, I'm not going to taste this today because I am allergic. But that is the only valid excuse. Other than that, we need to take into consideration that when we visit someone and they offer us something to eat, it's because they have prepared it and because they want us to taste it. And that brings me to the point of you at least need to taste it, and you will always comment on the meal. So you will say how amazing the meal was or that you really enjoyed it. You can also mention that it was perhaps the first time that you had that meal. You can also share, or you can ask questions. So you can say, what exactly does this dish entail? And I think that is the most important. Also, if you are a host and you are cooking a meal for your guest that's visiting your home, it is very important to, if you taste the food in front of your other guests, is to always use a new spoon. Because as we know, we have to taste a meal to make sure that everything is in order. But it is very important that we take note of the fact that we cannot keep on using the same spoon to taste the meal, because that it will definitely put our guests off as well. So that is one of the important things to take note of if you are a host and you want your guests to taste your special dishes that you've just made, is also to keep that hygiene and etiquette around tasting the food as well.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Riandi Conradie, who is the Managing Director at the South African Etiquette Academy. Thank you so much for making time for us.